The Way Navigations, as they are known, are managed by the National Trust. They comprise the original Way navigation, which runs from Weybridge past the junction with the Basingstoke Canal to the centre of Guildford, where it meets the Godalming navigation. That continues for a further 4 miles or so to Godalming. At Gun's Mouth, the Godalming navigation forms a junction with the Way and Arun Canal, which is currently unnavigable and under restoration. The Act of Parliament enabling a navigation from Guildford along the line of the River Way down to the Thames here at Weybridge was passed in 1651. So this is a very early navigation indeed, predating James Brindley by 100 years or more. A second Act of Parliament was passed in 1760 to enable the extension of the navigation from Guildford to Godalming. Now, at around the time that the original navigation was being constructed, a local grand house, about a mile or so away from here, called the Oatlands Palace, was being demolished. Oatlands had originally been built by Henry VIII for his fourth wife, Anne of Cleves. In an early piece of recycling, the bricks from the palace were brought here and used in the construction of the navigation. We begin our journey at Shepperton Lock, where the River Way meets the River Thames. Charming waterside properties, boathouses and moorings line the banks of Ham How Island. The peace is eventually disturbed by the thundering waters of the nearby Weir. The entrance to the Way Navigations is hard to find, partly hidden by the trees. It's the only navigation currently managed by the National Trust. The entrance seems impossibly confined after the wide, open waters of the Thames. It's about a quarter of a mile to the first lock, and that proves to be one of the strangest arrangements on our waterway system. The lock's bottom gate has a shallow sill, so an additional gate is used to create a pound below the lock, which is under the footbridge around the corner. The level's raised about 6 inches, and it takes ages. The lock may only be operated by the lock keeper. He lives in the meticulously maintained lock cottage, from which you can also buy guidebooks and maps, your licence, and one of the special windlasses required for this navigation. You can return it as you leave and get your money back. The balance beams on the Way are long, thin and circular, resembling old-fashioned wooden telephone poles. The Royal Humane Society still operates as a charity, but it no longer maintains life-saving apparatus at the locks. That's done by the National Trust. The Weybridge oil mill stood here above the lock, processing linseed and rape oil until it burnt down in 1963. The navigation above the lock is a canalised river. It's very beautiful and very well used on this pleasant summer's day. We're immediately reminded that we're close to Weybridge, heart of the stockbroker belt, where the fabulously expensive waterside properties reflect the fortunes that can be made in the city. There's a really peaceful stretch as we head upstream towards Town Lock. The two bridges ahead both carry local roads. The more distant one spans the non-navigable river, which after a short distance flows right through the old Brooklands motor racing circuit, and that's well worth a visit. Built in 1906 by Hugh Fortescue Lock King, the 100-year-old concrete of the Outer Banked Circuit is now in a sorry state. One of the earliest records set here was on the 15th of February 1913, when over 100 miles was driven in 1 hour by Percy Lambert, driving a Talbot. Motoring heroes were created here. Men like Malcolm Campbell, driving car number 50. Men like Parry Thomas, who was to die attempting the world land speed record at Pendine Sands, and winner of this race, Major Henry Seagrave. Brooklands can also be said to be the home of British aviation. The Vickers Company set up an aircraft factory here in 1915, and Brooklands became the largest aircraft manufacturing centre in World War I. In the 1920s, the first British Grand Prix was held here. The circuit finally closed to motor racing in 1949.